Let's come back to the bitter drinks in the morning, the tea, the coffee. What if somebody you mentioned their cinnamon and sea salt, not things I've tried to implement with my coffee, but interesting. What about somebody who's made the switch already from say like a standard white sugar to like monk fruit, xylitol, stevia? I believe xylitol might spike the glycemic index, but I don't believe stevia or monk fruit does. Just curious on your thoughts if somebody goes that route to sweeten those beverages in the morning. Does that break the fast?
Well, I don't think it's a clean fast. And so I like people to, and there are people who want to argue to the death on this. Yes, maybe in a lab animal, it did not evoke an insulin response, but there's something called the cephalic phase insulin response. And you put something sweet on your tongue, your body is getting ready for food. And whether or not it is, whether or not you are doing a clean fast or a dirty fast, and I can differentiate between what they are, I like people to learn best practices. So if you are going from table sugar to stevia in an effort to reacclimate your palate with the intention of going to black coffee, that's fine. But if you're using that as like you're going to put monk fruit or stevia or thyrotol or any of the other cleaner sugars that are out there, the intent should always be like you're moving towards a clean fast. That's always, I like people to have best practices. I cannot tell you how many people dirty fast and then they don't get the results they're looking for. And when I start kind of examining what they're doing, I remind them that it doesn't mean it's calorie-less. There's still some properties that you're adding to these drinks. And certainly for women, unfortunately, as we get older, you have to be more conscientious about discretionary food. And so I think it's fine if you understand why you're doing it. Just like for the same reason, if someone's on a standard American diet and is couch potato and they have to use a fatty coffee to get from dinner to breakfast without feeling awful as their body's kind of detoxing and processing, getting rid of all this, highly inflammatory food that they've been eating. I think it's always with the intention. And it's something that certainly Dave Asprey has taught me that, meeting people where they are and acknowledging that not everyone's ready to go directly to a clean fast. They may have to have, put the training wheels on the bike, and they're doing this as an intention to kind of move to clean fasting. And I think that's an important differentiator. What are your goals? What are you working towards? Because if you have a problem with sugar, and a lot of people do, using stevia, using thyrotol, using monk fruit as an alternative is fine, but you still may be masking the fact that you actually have a problem with sugar. And the example is those bitter teas are bitter. They are not meant to be sweet. And so I remind myself when I'm drinking a bitter tea that there's a purpose there. Like bitter teas, bitter foods, bitter greens are designed specifically, the polyphenol content gives our body important information, and whether or not it's helping with digestion or, making our bile less viscous, there's a lot of different properties to bitter greens and things like that. There is a purpose. There is information in that tea or that coffee that my body would benefit from. And that's always the reframe, like understanding you can build up a tolerance to something that's bitter. Doesn't mean you have to eat copious amounts, but most, if not all of us, have an unhealthy relationship with sugar. And so those healthier sugar alternatives are still sugars. They're still, they may be cleaner. They may evoke less of an insulin response, but to me, it's still kind of masking a problem. That's why I'm not a huge proponent of a lot of like paleo and keto junk food, because it's still junk food. As long as people understand what it is, no judgment. But if you've got a problem with a lot of processed food and you just keep replacing it with healthier variations, there might still be an issue that you have to address.
Let's stick on the clean fasting here for a bit, because there are supplements that you talk about in the book, things that we can include during a fast that not only don't break the fast, they enhance it. And there's one in there we'll start with that is something I've never heard of, spermidine. So talk about what this is and how somebody could use that to take their fast to the next level.
Yeah, spermidine is an interesting, and despite the name, most spermidine now is derived from a wheat alternative, although I'm assured that it's safe for celiacs. I've been down a rabbit hole about spermidine for a while, but it upregulates one of the key benefits of fasting, which is autophagy. So this waste and recycling process in the body. And so spermidine is one of these, fasting mimetics. So they're designed to kind of upregulate and magnify the benefits. And so Spermidine I find fascinating. Berberine is another one that's really fascinating to use. There's a lot of medicinal mushrooms that can be beneficial, always in the context of what else are they in. But I think it's interesting when people are looking to take fasting to another level. Obviously, you wait until you've got the basics down before you start adding in these things. But I think there are always hackers. There are always people that are looking to take or to magnify the benefits that they're getting in a really kind of benign way. And I do find that spermidine is of interest. I'm sensitive to gluten, so I've been a little reticent. I do actually have a bottle. I got a bottle through Dave Asprey. And so I find it really interesting. I've had a lot of questions, but I do kind of pause, and I'm trying to connect with an autophagy expert to try to bring her on my podcast to actually ask her all the questions that I have about spermidine in general. But originally it was derived from exactly what it sounds like. But berberine's probably the one that I think is much more accessible for a lot of people. Although all the research that I've read on berberine, you don't want to use it on a day that you've lifted because it can actually inhibit like muscle protein synthesis. So for anyone that's listening that's not familiar with berberine, it is considered to be nature's metformin or nature's glucophage. And so I saw a lot of glucophage and metformin prescriptions over the years. But it's interesting that we have this medicinal plant that can help with insulin sensitivity as well. I do occasionally take that, especially if I've had a day with higher carbs and maybe not my healthy carbs. Maybe I've enjoyed like a piece of cake or it's been a celebration of some kind. But there are definitely things that you can add to your fast that are fasting mimetics. So they magnify the impact of some of the fasting benefits.
If you enjoyed that clip, press here for the full episode. I'll see you over there.
On a lot of levels, I'm truly grateful because intermittent fasting gave me back my life. Like I say all the time, I feel more energetic than I did 15 years ago.